Welcome to Silence is Cancelled. My name is Sid McGregor. I'm one of the co-founders of A Way Through. A Way Through is a nonprofit organization that opens doors to mental and emotional wellness. One of the ways we do that is by providing access to therapy for anybody who wants it and anybody who needs it. So if you or someone you love is in need of help, please visit our website at waythrough.org and let us help you find your way through. In this episode, we wanted to share with you our story and how A Way Through came to be. We filmed this conversation, or we recorded this conversation with our co-founders, Andrew, Chris, and Jackie over the summer out in LA. And they just shared their unique connection and the journeys that brought them together. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's take a listen.
So remember that day?
So how
did we start?
How did we get this thing going?
How did we get to this point? Okay, so if I think back to where it began, I remember getting off work, watching a video, and just being distraught after watching the video. It was the video of George Floyd's murder. And I remember thinking, what the heck? Like, all this time of no color lines, we're all the same, just work really hard, be a really good person. I'm in the middle of a doctorate degree, and yet still we're being murdered in the streets. So I remember being really angry and disappointed and disheartened and angry. And so I thought I had a class to teach the next week. I was supposed to start multicultural perspectives. And I thought, I don't think I can teach this class appropriately. I don't think I can go into the room and not be angry.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to say some things publicly. And so I wrote a very long text message to some important people in my life to say, this isn't okay. Mm-hmm. I'm really upset. I'm really angry with you all for not fixing it. And at the same time, I also felt responsible for people not knowing how bad it really is.
Yeah.
Right? Because growing up, we're taught not to scare the white people. Right? So you don't say not to scare the white people. Grandma always said, don't scare the white people. And so we don't say anything. We do our life. We try to stay out of trouble. We try to be good people. The whole American dream thing. And I felt let down, and I was angry. I think a lot of my anger came from the fact that I have so many white friends who I know love me, who I love. However, they weren't seeing this problem. And if they were, they weren't doing anything about it. And so I was angry. So I sent out a few text messages saying, if you don't follow me on social media, please don't, because it's about to get real. And I have hit a point at which I'm no longer willing to be uncomfortable so that other people can be comfortable. So from now on, if it hurts, I'm going to say so. If it makes me uncomfortable, I'm going to say it. If it feels like racism, I'm going to say it. If it's a microaggression, which are those little things that make you feel like, was that racism? No, maybe it wasn't. Maybe they're just trying to be nice. And we then talk ourselves out of that. But because we continue to do that, and we stay silent about how offensive it actually is, people continue to do it, not knowing that it's hurtful.
And that's it. You're seeing the buildup of the hurt and the pain. And I remember sitting with one of my therapists, Jasmine, who is a Black female. And there just seemed to be something different. Different isn't the right word, more intense with George Floyd. It's like it hit a tipping point, because obviously we've been seeing this. I mean, if we're eyes wide open for over 400 years, but this particular incident did something to her that I saw is 100% a trauma response. She is carrying this pain inside of her.
It was our brother, our father, our husbands, our cousins, our grandfather. And I remember feeling something inside shatter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't put it back together. I don't know. Whatever it was that kept me not saying, I hate this. No, we're not free. No, we haven't gone as far as everybody says we've gone. Whatever that was that kept that tide back broke.
Well, and I remember because I talked to Jasmine and I asked her, I'm like, can we have this conversation in a more public forum? And to her credit, she had a proper boundary and said, I'm not ready for that. And so, but I knew as a white man, I needed to have the conversation because something was happening in me that I didn't feel racist, but I felt complicit. Come to find out, not being racist is really not an option. I've learned a lot since then. But that's when I called you up because I saw your posts and I knew our relationship. And then we started talking about the trauma that was happening intergenerationally, racially, all around us. And so for me, it was entering into really uncomfortable conversations, entering into spaces where I had to say things that I was afraid of. And that led to beginning of a podcast, Silence is Canceled. But really, we were sitting there and having this conversation of like, wait a second, a podcast for podcast's sake already exists all over the place. What is the actual purpose? And what we were seeing is that the people who were traumatized, the people that are carrying around their unseen and unheard and unhealed pain aren't getting the help that they need. And us working in, as therapists in the mental health field, we're just like, we can't cure everything. We can't solve all these problems, but we can do something.
Yeah, we can get people talking.
Yes.
Right? We had been conditioned to be silent about our pain, to be silent about our problems, to just work harder and be better. And that's not even just in terms of the race and the social justice issues. Generationally, we've all experienced trauma.
Yes.
Whether it's white body trauma or black body trauma, whether it's more powerful white body trauma being blown through less powerful white bodies, that's trickling down. And so we've just kept silent about it. And then we attack each other without necessarily even knowing it.
Well, and the truth is that pain is like our entrance fee onto planet Earth, right? We're all going to experience it. At one turn or another, one experience or another. But the pain that remains unhealed and unresolved starts acting itself out in our lives. So you and I know that really well.
See, that last summer while you guys are observing like the rest of us, right? Like all of us, and beginning this conversation with each other, I was kind of in a space where like I'm seeing this, but I kept myself intentionally distant from it for a couple of reasons. One is I have an activist lifestyle or a life career behind me, and I was watching all these new young activists rise up, and that was really powerful, and I was really sort of proud of this new movement. But also personally, I'd gone through some of my own pain, and I was like, okay, I don't have the energy or the wherewithal to really dive in, and nor do I have right now, at least, the thick skin to deal with putting posts out and doing things, because it always comes back, in different ways. And so there was some legitimate self-care in there, but in that, I was also thinking through, like, this is a big deal. Like, I should have a voice in this, and I should have questions, and I should have conversation. But there was that tentative nature that I was nurturing a bit to self-care, and also realizing other voices need to be speaking as well. I was on a road trip from Colorado out to New York to record music. And we were talking about, what to do with music. And because my own sort of therapeutic history, I was like, okay, I think I want to start an organization down the road that helps people get access to therapy, the access that I...
Because that's like the common thread. We're working in therapy, also benefiting from therapy. You're getting therapy.
Yeah, but so many people can't afford it. And I wasn't really linking that to the racial conversation going on. I just knew that people needed help. It wasn't an exclusive thing. It was just like, there's people everywhere that need help, and they can't afford it. And so what can I do? And it was for me like this thing that was going to happen way out there. Like I was totally like, all right, when I make it big in music, that's when I'm going to use some of that money and start my foundation, right? And a friend of mine asked me one day, she was like, when have you ever waited to have money to start something important? I was like, Yeah. Okay. Good point. And so I just started doing a little bit of research, but that was about it. That was what I was doing while you guys were having these intense conversations.
Well, what's interesting is like I have like a million ideas, but an inch of progress, right? And so as Jackie and I are having this conversation, we've never started a nonprofit organization before. We don't know where to start. We don't know what to do.
We were thinking about, we're going to have a podcast, because the two of us got on and we had a great conversation where we were just open and honest and asking questions and challenging the status quo. And we're like, we could do this with other people. We need to bring people in and let the world start to hear other people's stories, because the problem is we can't sit across the table from each other and be different.
Yes.
One or the other is pretending like everything's okay and we agree. And that's how we get so far divided.
And
so
how do we curate the space for these honest conversations that are scary, but at least we can be safe.
And they're necessary. We've been conditioned to not speak up, to not say anything, and all that's done is keep us trapped in our pain.
But speaking of the trapped in the pain, like you're seeing, Andrew, is that we're seeing that many people are, and there is help available.
Right. So we rather than just putting this podcast out and then saying, thank you for telling us your really sad story. That was not entertaining at all.
Have a nice day.
Right?
Yeah.
Have a nice day. We stopped and we said, well, we need a nonprofit. We need to be able to raise money and get donations so that people who come on and tell us their story, the least we can do is help them get some care.
Yeah.
And then...
I have a friend in England who we talk a lot about, trauma and stuff like this. And he posted something online on Suicide Prevention Day. And just because of the time difference in England and then coming over. So when I woke up that morning, I saw my friend's post and I was like, wow, I didn't realize this is a thing today. And I thought about it, and through my own experience and then experience of losing someone close to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to record something. And so I sat down and just recorded, 2 or 3 minutes of just some thoughts and stuff. And I did put out there, if you will, like, hey, one of my goals, one of my thoughts is to create an organization down the road that will help people get help. And that was really about the extent of it. What I really wanted to do is say, it's okay to talk about this. Please, God, can we talk about this? Because I'm tired of losing people. Yeah. And so, I just put out there, and someday through music, through whatever, I'm going to be a part of starting something that will get people help. And I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours later that day, I get a phone call from Chris Williams on my phone. I'm like, man, I haven't talked to him in like years, And I had a feeling right away, knowing your work, that this probably had something to do with my post, but I had no idea it was going to be this. I just thought, oh, Chris just wants to check in and make sure I'm okay. And I was like, that's cool. And so I picked up, and I don't know what you saw and what you thought or what you were doing when you saw it, but that's how I kind of got connected in this conversation.
Part of what I was seeing through the pandemic and our quarantine experience, our shutdown experience, is that the mental health issues were increasing at alarming rates. Yeah. And so obviously the life-threatening conditions that are created in that. But really what it was, Andrew, is you articulated it in such a personalized but clear way that I really connected with. And there was just that thing inside of me as we were wrestling with how do we do a nonprofit, I knew of your history in the nonprofit world. Right. And honestly, I was just like, I know enough to know what I don't know. And Andrew knows, I want to call Andrew and pick your brain about what it would, this idea, and what are things that I need to know to start moving this thing down the road.
Yeah, and for me, you told me about Jackie. Obviously, we hadn't met yet, and I was like, okay, there's some differences in our ideas, which is fine. That's always true. But there's enough parallel, and I started like, wow, this is interesting. Because one of my hesitancies was I didn't want to ever start another organization by myself. Yeah. And for a number of reasons. And so, basically, I think we concluded the call like, hey, let's get on a call with Jackie soon and just have a conversation. There wasn't any commitments or any, hey, let's do this. It was just like, wow, we got these interesting ideas. And it was helping me because I was looking at the racial issues going on around in our country going, okay, this might be a way in, if you will, a practical and effective way in. I did write a song that was inspired by the whole summer, really, and that was a bit of a gift, if you will, a contribution, but nothing more than that. And that was kind of bothering me. But I also, as an activist, I want activism to be effective. Not just out there with a megaphone and then you go home. And so, yeah, it was a really empowering conversation. I don't know how many weeks later that we got to it.
Well, the Suicide Awareness Day is October 1st. Okay. So it was by the end of November that we were saying, hey, let's form this and reveal it. Well, even before that, though, when we met on Zoom, the three of us, right? And that's when you and I first saw each other's face and met. And I think I remember we just told each other's, we told our stories.
Yeah, we told each other our stories.
Just to get to know each other. And there wasn't an agenda. There wasn't a plan of action. It was just, and it built from there. And I think we did that 3 or 4 times where we just sort of started to unpackage each other a little bit.
And it started to come to shape. It started to come to life. It became something that was starting to gain energy. I think our ideas, like you said, they were a little different, but they aligned enough that we could make it work. And what we ended up doing was it was including everyone, right? So we say we want to serve marginalized, diverse, and underserved populations, and that's inclusive, right? There are underserved populations.
Yeah, underserved and under-resourced everywhere.
Everywhere. It's not just a matter of not having funding. It's not just a matter of being broke or being poor.
Well, also too, and we talk about like middle class people can't access therapy for even the economic reasons, just because of the expense, the insurance institutions, maybe whatever. And the thing that we had in common is we wanted to bypass all the red tape and just how do we direct, whether it's a kid in inner city LA or someone.
Or a kid in Coto de Casa.
I don't know where that is, but
it's in South Orange County.
Or one of my players in Golden, Colorado, and just to get people help, and then in that sort of arena, have a conversation about race and identity and ethnicity. And I think the powerful thing for me, or one of the powerful things, is us. Just the dynamic, I'm mixed race, Black father, white mother, from England, African-American woman, white guy, and we get to model and live this out. And I really have enjoyed I won't ever call them uncomfortable, but real conversations where I'm like, can I say this, or can I think this, or can I, or my question about this, and because it's safe, because there's relationship and there's a recognition that we know each other's heart.
And I think beneath all of that is our own work. Is that each of us have had access to be able to look and heal from some of our pains, to work on, for myself, some of my depression and anxiety and historical traumas and addictive issues that were continuing to hijack. But that work itself allowed me at least to have the conversation and feel less threatened, and also for you guys to be able to create a safe environment for that to happen, and a safe environment to disagree.
Right, same. I'm a Black woman, and in my culture, we were taught that we don't go out and tell anybody our business. And so therapy is just not something that's really all that common. And growing up in the inner city, it's certainly not something that's that common unless you are in trouble, right? So the therapist represents the system. And so you don't tell the system anything that could get you taken out of your home, right? Or
So therapy in that context is a threat, not a benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it seen as a weakness? Like I would say in the communities I've run in, like in the past, it's like, there must be something wrong with you, so you're going to get something fixed.
Right.
Which in itself, there's probably some truth in that, but it was that stigma of, oh, you're not all together.
Well, you're weak and you should have a stronger mind and you should be able to control whatever the situation is. You shouldn't need someone to help you through it.
Well, there's this sort of cloud of shame over struggling mentally.
Right. Being in the military, one of the things we would hear is suck it up, right? Be a man, be a woman, be tough. And growing up, same thing. We had to be strong. If someone saw you cry, that was a weakness.
And strong being defined as non-emotional.
Non-emotional, not telling anyone you have a problem. Just living your life as though everything's fine, everything's normal, everything's okay, even though you're living in a home where you're being terrorized.
So it was this conversation that we kept having, right? And I remember just like, I don't remember what it was, but we had a meeting planned. Was it somewhere in November? And we all got on, and I was like, okay, like we can keep having this conversation, but if we want to do something, let's do it. And for me, the thinking was end of year, it's a time of giving and people donate. And I was like, okay, we could do something. And I think I remember putting out to you too, hey, if there's something we want to do, there's some official things we need to do and start building. And together we chose the date of December 1st to sort of reveal ourselves to the world. We went through a process of getting a name and building a website. And that's when this team started to come together.
I think that's the key, is that once we made that step, a tangible step in the direction of this is real, that we get the initial beginnings of an organization with an ability to generate some resources, there seemed to be a magnetism, like a gravitational pull.
Well, because when you guys were talking, I was in New York talking with Sid and talking about some of these issues, but really we're focused on music. And then Sid connected me with Joe, and that was sometime in August. I think he and I got on the phone, and again, they were just trying to help me with music. But then I remember saying to both Sid and Joe, I was like, I just had this conversation with Chris and I met Jackie. Does this connect? And they're like, absolutely, it connects. And
the connection really is, to be clear, is that there's too many people without access to mental and emotional wellness resources that need it.
Right. Like the thing we decided to do was tell these stories, just like we wanted to do in the podcast, just like you want to do in your music, so that people will realize that we shouldn't be ashamed of our experiences, and we need each other. We heal in relationship, and we want to make it comfortable, or at least safe, for people to start talking about what's going on in their life, so that we can get them to the help that they need.
Yeah, and ultimately that they can walk through the door of the help that could change their life, potentially save their life.
Absolutely.
And that's what we all sort of knew. And what we didn't have is that sort of codified into a mission statement and organizational structure. And, I remember in December, just like, all right, we're incorporated. We had our 501c3 process going, and we raised some money to get us started by the end of the year. And we brought Diana in, and she led us through the mission statement and the values process. Susan, getting us a social media presence that made us look like we knew what was going on, and Asia with admin. Obviously Joe and what he brought as far as some leadership and guidance, and just all these people that just sort of kept coming in.
Each of these names represent, for me, two things. A heart for what we're doing, but an amazing gifting. I mean, it was just like, are you kidding me? That like, here's these super gifted people that are really gravitating towards this mission that we're on.
Yeah, because let's face it, we couldn't have done this on our own.
Absolutely not. And I think that as everybody has kind of shown up and fallen into place and done the thing that they do, I realize every time a new person enters into the team and they fit so well, they bring exactly what we didn't know we didn't have, but we needed. At that time, it just feels, it's more and more of a confirmation for me that this was going to happen with or without us.
Yes.
I'm grateful we get to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, because how we came up with, but we didn't really come up with anything, meaning that like we saw that this was a movement. And it's sort of like get in the movement or get out of the way. Yeah. But we also know that if it's going to be a movement, we've got to have people a part of the movement. And it's got to be a collaboration of many people that are passionate about the same thing.
Yeah, and the work that's happened, you know, we revealed in December 1st. I think I remember like, all right, July 1st, we'll launch. You know, thinking, all right,
it seems so far away.
7 or 8 months, whatever that was, and here we are.
We got time.
It's July 2nd, you know, 2021, and we have launched. We have structure. We have digital presence. We have a staff. We have funding. There's a lot of work to do, but therapists can connect with the movement and join. People who need help can come to the website and join. And there's other things we want to do, like, you know, we've talked about research and scholarships and really connecting in especially under-resourced communities and breaking stigma and telling stories. But it's, yeah, we've both driven this as well as been along for the ride.
Kind of followed the noise, followed our nose where it was leading. Yeah. And I want to go back to something I think was important, at least for me in my process here, is that I kept thinking, especially as a therapist in private practice and having a group practice, that the pain point is that I'm fully aware that I've priced out much of the population. For most of my career so far, I've priced out myself. Like, that's kind of bananas. Like, that's weird, a weird space to be in. And also knowing that there is a justice part of this, that therapy in really good spaces is a privilege for the few. And I'm like, how is there a way we can make it a right for the many? Which for me meant financial resources. And certainly that's true, and it's at the heartbeat of what we're doing. But our conversations, those Friday mornings, week after week after week, coming together, grinding it out, talking it out, you guys really helped me see that stigma, although it's much better today than it has been, is still alive and well. And when I saw it, I'm like, stigma is killing people. It's literally killing people. And therefore, we've got to go after this. We got to be better storytellers. So at the heartbeat of it, as we're providing both financial resources and therapeutic resources for people, we are providing better stories to break stigma so that truly therapy can be a right for the many instead of a privilege for the few.
So you said something that really is close to my heart in this, when you use the word justice, because my background in the nonprofit sector, my whole career has been, you know, human rights, international development around the world. And it's kind of easy. Well, it's not so easy, but those were issues of justice to me, you know, poverty and wealth and access to things like water and housing and schooling, you know, education and whatnot. And people have asked me, you know, like, you know, what do you do? And I still say I'm a humanitarian, you know, I'm a human rights professional. And it's taken me a little while, but learning that this is a justice issue as well.
Yeah,
it should be an access, you know, people should have access to care, just like healthcare. And so for me in the evolution of my career, it's been really empowering to go, yeah, I'm still a humanitarian. I'm still telling stories. I've always believed that stories create empathy, and empathy is what changes the world, right? And so when you say that, it just excites me even more, because I'm still doing what I've always done, but just in a, if you will, a different, I don't want to say direction, but a different platform. And I've said this to some friends, you know, I've gotten to do some really important things in my life and really amazing things. This might be, I think, some of the more important work that I've ever done, because it's underneath everything, you know, culture of poverty, a culture of not having, of not believing that you can have, and not believe you can, and not just material things, but mental health, being of right mind is for someone else, and that I've seen in not only my own life, but my family's life and others around me. And that's that stigma. It's like, oh, it's not for me. I'm too out there. I'm too poor. I'm too whatever it is.
Right. And I think when people wonder why we are at the point of talking about stigma, when we started out talking about George Floyd's murder, it's because we thought people aren't well to be able to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then the trauma that it causes to stand around and watch that happen, feeling so helpless and so unable to make it stop.
Yes.
And that's generational trauma. And it has been passed down, and we continue to get pulled up into the tornado, into this cyclone. And that was the catalyst, I think, at least for me, to say enough is enough. We have the skills to make a difference. We have to make people listen. And in order to give them something to listen to, we have to tell our stories. And so the murder of George Floyd really pushed us to start to talk about the problems we see in the world, which takes us back to the humanitarian piece. This is an issue. Everybody is struggling, and we were in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so there is going to be a tsunami of mental health issues
that are
coming. They're coming.
Absolutely.
And as mental health professionals and humanitarian professionals, we shouldn't sit around and wait for it to come on shore. We needed to get ready. And I think that that's really what A Way Through is about, is getting ready for whoever that person is, whoever comes through our door, whoever contacts us, getting ready to help them find what they need, find the resources, find the connections, find the therapist that could help save their life.
Even find the courage, because you know what? I heard her story. I heard his story, and that gives me just enough courage to walk through that open door and get help for themselves.
We find that solidarity in that. And something that you said, Jackie, is that I love this line from the spiritual writer Richard Rohr. He says, the pain that we do not transform, we transmit.
Right.
And of course, in our offices, we see that acted out in real time on a daily basis. And so A Way Through exists, that everyone has the opportunity to transform their pain rather than transmit their pain.
Right, absolutely.
It also reminds me of a quote, a Rumi quote, which is what we're asking people to do. And this is hard. The wound is where the light shines in.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And we are asking people to open their soul a bit, but for healing, and for healing of themselves, for healing of their relationships, for healing of our communities, indeed our society, right? Because I learned this truth: hurt people.
Yeah.
And so that's a universal, right? It's not black, white, or anything else. Hurt people, damaged people, damage other people. And we have to intervene into those cycles if there's any hope for any of us. And
we have to stop saying we're not hurt.
Exactly.
Right?
That's it.
I'm fine. Yeah. I'm okay. No, you're actually not okay, and you're hurting other people because you're transmitting it through other people.
Absolutely. And then where we have decided we're coming into your life, or anyone's life, including our own, is when you recognize that I'm done hurting, both personally and relationally, that now you have access. We can help you in that spot.
There are no barriers.
Exactly.
And that takes the excuse. Listen, we are an open door, an open door to mental and emotional wellness. And I think it's one of the honors of my life to get to be with you guys, and have this conversation, cool. And then work on this team. And I'm so grateful. And there's some amazing things ahead of us.
Absolutely. When you think about our values and what this work means to us, there are some amazing things ahead of us.
And we've already been surrounded by amazing people.
Oh my goodness, it's incredible. Yeah.
Right. Love you guys.
Love you. Yes.
I hope you enjoyed our story, and I hope that it helps you understand our hearts and our values. At A Way Through, we're in this movement to break the stigma around mental health and to create access. And telling stories is part of that. And our story and how we came together, that's part of it. If you want to join us, there are 3 ways you can do that. First, if you need help, you can go to our website, you can click on Get Help, and you can let us help you get on that journey today. If you're a therapist, we're building a provider network. You can join us. You can provide the help for the people who need it. You can click on Give Help, and let's help open these doors. If you want to support us financially, you can gift help. Your donation will break stigma, and it will create access, and it will change someone's life. Guarantee it. You can find us on Facebook. Please follow us there at waythrough.org. As always, stay safe. Let the people around you know they matter. And please know there's always a way through.